Welcome to The Spotlight, the show that brings you voices of those who truly feed our nation, our small-scale farmers. Whether you're a farmer, a consumer, or just someone who cares about where your food comes from, this show is for you. This is The Spotlight, where small-scale farmers lead the discussion towards a just and resilient food system.
Hi, welcome to this special episode of The Spotlight. Today we commemorate the World International Day of Action against the World Trade Organization. For decades, the WTO has been at the center of the global trade systems, promising economic growth through the free trade agreements and deregulation of economies. However, this has not been the case for many nations. This has not been the case for small-scale farmers. And so on this day, activists around the world, advocates and farmers come together to discuss or share their discomfort that comes with the World Trade Organizations. Joining me for this important discussion are two small-scale farmers, Edith Grace Nalwende from Bujiri District and George Raymond Wawia from Mbale District. My name is Naomi Kalinachi. Over to the episode. And so with that, I would like you to help us understand what is the myth around the WTO and free trade.
Okay, thank you once again. Here we need to understand that the most destructive myth under this is that free trade creates a leveled ground for all small-scale farmers. But this, to us, is not real. Because you may see that in developed countries, there is what we call good subsidies and support. What am I trying to mean? I'm meaning that in some other developing countries, there is unequal subsidies, small subsidies and support. That means the governments in developed countries give support to their farmers to do their productions compared to developing countries.
Wow, and that's where it becomes destructive.
Yes.
It ceases to be actually a level ground.
Yeah.
Because whoever has more resources then can be able to have a larger field to play compared to the rest.
Yeah.
Yes, Edith, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Naomi. Like Raymond has said, when there is support for a section of farmers, those ones do production highly, and when you produce more and take your goods to the market, they are cheaper than you who has produced small, who wants to sell them at a higher cost. So you find that small-scale farmers' goods are not even bought because for them production is expensive. They do not have any subsidy by their governments. Then there is also this issue of flooding the markets by these ones who produce more. Now when they flood the markets, supply and demand. So the goods will become cheap. Then of course, a small-scale farmer would love to improve himself or herself economically, but you find that they are getting very little out of what they are supposed to, what is supposed to lift their economy. Then there is also what we call loss of food sovereignty. This brings out the issue of how someone produces food and the right to produce food, the one that you would love to produce, but then you find yourself not doing it because culturally we may be killed. You go to all markets, they are flooded with those cheap commodities and people go in for that. And people would also shift towards producing cash crops for export so that they get money. And every time they produce cash crops, we forget on production for food, and then that is injuring our food security. And you don't move on well as small-scale farmers. So actually, WTO and FTA are just something that doesn't level the ground for all the farmers. It is a bit bumpy for us small-scale farmers. Thank you.
Wow,
And
I feel that, yes, please.
maybe a point to add is that there is also a shift towards export crops. We find that they do emphasize much on cash crops like coffee, then leaving behind these food crops that can help a small-scale farmer to have food security as well as food sovereignty.
Wow, okay, that's very interesting. So, in other words, you are saying that the WTO does not treat all farmers
Equally, yes.
It's favoring more of the large-scale farmers,
Yes.
especially from the developed countries. But for trade to benefit the small-scale farmers, policies then must account for the inequalities in resources. If other people are more endowed with some resources, these inequalities should be put into consideration rather than forging a leveled ground for everyone to play. So we could say equal rules actually do not mean equal opportunities
Yes.
for everyone.
Mm.
Wow. So
Definitely.
Edith, you talked about food security and food sovereignty. Could you help us distinguish these two terms?
Okay. When we are talking about food security, we are looking at the availability of food. Is it available? And if it is available, am I able to access it? So food is available, and if I don't access it, then it's not food security. I need to access the food and also utilize it in a nutritional way. That means a balanced diet, that whatever you are eating can build up your body, can protect it, can give you energy, and it can make the body healthy. That is the utilization. It has to be in that mode. And we also look at the stability of the food. It has to be available season in, season out, year in, year out. So that we have food all the time. That is what we call food security. It has to be available, accessible, utilized, and stable. We need it. Then food sovereignty is all about the rights. Do I have a right to produce what I believe in culturally? That if I'm to eat matoke, that is food to me, and yet to others it's not. So that is the food sovereignty. Even being in control of the production chain, right from the production to value addition to putting it on my table and to also marketing it. Is it me controlling all that goes in that food sovereignty? And it also have to be, the mode of production should be sustainable, and I should be able to sustain the mode of production. Like maybe have the land to produce the food all the time, I need to. And also food sovereignty talks of being able as a farmer to define what I really call food, like I've already said. In some parts of the world or of the country, without potatoes, it's not food. Others, potatoes is just a snack for breakfast.
Yeah.
So that is what we call food sovereignty, and they like. Maybe my colleague can add on.
Yes, Raymond, you want to say something?
Well, thank you, Madam. Maybe what I can add is that these things are distinctive, they differ. You'll find that when you are talking about food security, here it is majorly achieved through corporate agriculture and trade, global trade. Whereas food security demands the community to produce or rather own their system of production.
Yeah, so in short, we are saying food security is looking at short-term fixes, and
Yes.
food sovereignty is looking at long-term sustainability.
Yes, yes.
Wow, so it's really important for us to understand this difference, because
Yes.
it also helps us to ensure that the policies that are being worked on are not only focusing on ending hunger at the cost of community rights, at the cost of ecological balance or our
Yes.
culture identity, but rather looking about how are we feeding the people and empowering them to produce over a given time. Wow, that's interesting. It's actually very good for us to produce according to values that align with what we believe in and what we need. And now I would like us to share, do we know of some alternative economic models that you think we should actually adopt as small-scale farmers at a global level?
Well, one of the alternative models that we need to adopt is peasant agroecology. Peasant agroecology means that working with the environment without harming each other. That means the food that we are going to produce, it will be safe for our health, and our nutrition definitely will improve. Yes.
And in agroecology, we also maintain the fertility of our soils so that production is continuous. Then there is also a model of solidarity economy. In solidarity economy, we don't look at having profits for that one person. Profits are for the community, that all of us benefit from what we have produced. And we also look at maybe forming a food sovereignty movement. So a movement where everyone gets information, once people get information and then utilize it and apply it, then we can have our stable food and also have sustainable methods of producing the food, and we really own it also. Then there is also production, value addition, like I talked about it, and territorial trade that can really help us in marketing our crops. And in this territorial trade, we can have some gaps somewhere filled so that we do not allow a lot to come from outside, and we also market our own. I think that one will help us in creating some sort of level for our small-scale farmers.
So, in other words, Madam is trying to mean that local farmers have to own production and own their markets. They have to sell their local food to the very local people.
Wow, and I strongly agree with you, really. As a nation, we are blessed. We can do a lot in our agricultural system, and it is still the backbone of our country, so we can leverage on so many opportunities within this system to improve our production. But what is most important is for our governments to actually protect the initiatives of the local farmers. Why do we have to import value-added products when our small-scale farmers have the capacity? We have the resources. If we have the resources we need, can we then capacitate these small-scale farmers to go actually into production, to go into value addition, to actually look at issues of quality control and also branding, so that our products are actually also able to compete or actually attain space at the tables of the high-value markets. And so I think really looking at these models, adopting them is not just looking at survival, but rather reclaiming the dignity, the autonomy, and then the sustainability of our agriculture. Because I believe that when small-scale farmers organize themselves, they can innovate and actually resist some of these extractive systems that do not benefit them.
Yeah.
It's such a good discussion.
That is the movement I'm really talking about. Organize themselves, come together and speak one language, and they make a force. And that's where we can get an independent model that can reshape the whole system.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, do you think that some of these local models can compete with large-scale globalized food systems, or it's actually an entirely independent paradigm?
We are looking at having it, well, it's fine to work together, complement, but we are looking at it being very independent. So why do we say it should be independent? It should be independent because our mode of production, culturally accepted here, is really different from what WTO has at its principles. So for us, since we've already seen that WTO and FTA do not level ground for us, as small-scale farmers, it's a bit bumpy, we begin with our own so that we are independent and we reshape the system. Then maybe later on as time goes on, we can. But for now, the system can be independent to help farmers come up and seek value for their production. That one will make them very active, and in fact it motivates the production. And maybe so that we shift from looking at producing cash crops and we maintain our food production so that food security is very stable and we shouldn't go in lacking food. Because once in a while, you can see food being shifted to an area. But how long? That one is not sustainable. How long will it take? And also when we look at our food sovereignty and we are managing it ourselves, our soils will not be depleted. So we shall have continuous production. That is why we are saying we need to have an independent model that will continue within the system for our local farmers.
Yes, more so this food sovereignty movement. It's going to help us so very well in that when we start it, every farmer will know how to produce his or her own food in a specific area, which is a very quality, with good what? Nutrition. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm actually looking at this and saying these models that we are proposing are actually not a competition, but rather a revolution to reshape how we are producing, to reshape our food systems. And so our focus is not on feeding people better, but rather trying to transform the entire logic of how food is grown, how it is shared, and how it is valued. And I think this creates a win for all of us.
Amen.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because we need to look at models that not only trying to outcompete what is existing and maybe dysfunctional, but we need to bring into play models where people get to choose justice, they get to choose autonomy, they get to choose economic and ecological sanity over corporate control. Benefits or profits should actually go to everyone and not just to specific individuals who have all the resources needed. And lastly, I would want us to make some calls to to our policymakers and governments. What are some of those concrete policy changes or reforms that you think governments, especially in the developing countries, should adopt to minimize the pressures coming in from WTO and the free trade agreements?
Thank you so much, Madam Naomi. Now, the policy changes I would really look at is regulating the foreign
Corporate
investment.
and corporate
so that
powers.
it is limited. And also, like he's saying, corporate powers and investing more in agroecology, because we are looking at it as the best way of producing enough and also maintaining for stability, for stable food. We really need to have a lot in agroecology so that everyone comes comes on board and we practice agroecology.
And to make a point follow is that perhaps our governments can withdraw from these free trade agreements so that they can concentrate much on these new models that we have proposed here, so that we can start moving. And
So most especially withdrawing can come when we try to negotiate,
yes,
and then we don't move a step. Then I think if that one fails, then really they can maybe
withdraw from those
and that doesn't-
foreign power.
Yeah,
Yes.
so if
support
it's not
them.
working for us, we don't have to stay in it. We can
Yes.
actually work with our local systems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is very interesting, and I know all these changes to happen, it really requires a lot of political will, a lot of regional solidarity, so that we are able to push back from these powerful trading partners that are trying to dominate how we operate, that are trying to actually enforce their policies on how we operate, how we produce, how we feed, how we actually trade. So I think it is important for us as developing economies to actually focus on protecting our economic sovereignty that feeds people more sustainably, rather than being trapped in the cycles of dependency. Because every now and then you have to keep running back to these corporate traders for aid. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it means we are not growing at all.
Yeah.
Wow. That is interesting. So I would like to bring this discussion to an end. Raymond, what do you have to say?
Okay. Thank you once again. As a youth in a developing country, I'll advise my fellow youth to say no to World Trade Organization. Why? Because they are aiming much at profit rather than sustainability. That's why we are saying no to it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And Edith, what do you have to say?
You know, agriculture is the backbone of this country, and women are the largest number in production. We give the largest labor in all circles. And us, as small-scale farmers, women peasants, we really embrace food sovereignty, and we stand in solidarity to say no to World Trade Organization and free trade agreements.
So
Thank
we
you.
are saying no to World
No.
Trade
No.
Organization, no to
Because we
free
don't
trade
benefit from it. Yes.
What a good way to conclude that, this conversation. So we are saying the International Day of Action Against the WTO and Free Trade Agreements is actually not, it's more than a protest. We are actually calling for radical transformation from the different actors, from the governments, to come on board, and so that we can be able to focus on issues that benefit the lower people, that benefit the developing economies, rather than having fronting issues that are looking at profiting only a smaller group of people at the expense of the livelihoods of others. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been such an interesting discussion we've had. For more of these insightful conversations, please follow us on all our socials at SF Uganda. Thank you so much.